Hush! Cynthia urgently gestured to Emily, who couldn't contain her laughter while looking at Sister Jane's lifeless body. Shh, be quiet, girls, Cynthia insisted. Emily had just pointed at Sister Jane's peaceful face and whispered something to Rose, who was also struggling not to laugh. They were both trying to control their giggles. It was a sad day at the convent. Sister Jane, who was still in her 30s, had tragically passed away. She now lay in a coffin surrounded by roses, while children, too young to fully grasp the concept of death, tried to pay their respects in their own way. Emily found herself amused by the way Sister Jane's face looked, reminding her of the way the sister would scrunch up her nose when scolding them. It was a funny sight that they used to imitate in the privacy of their dormitories. Rose was particularly good at copying her gestures and mannerisms. This isn't right. She's gone. We're at a funeral, for heaven's sake. Cynthia scolded, her anger rising as Emily and Rose struggled to hold back their laughter. They fell silent, realizing the importance of showing respect for the departed. Making fun of the deceased was simply not appropriate. Cynthia's turn. When it was Cynthia's time to bid farewell, she observed Sister Jane's peaceful form with care. Her heart was heavy with sorrow. Poor Sister Jane, she thought. Sister Jane had never been a source of trouble for Cynthia. Cynthia had always been a diligent student, completing her homework on time and paying full attention when Sister Jane taught. She consistently answered all questions correctly, which had earned her Sister Jane's admiration. Cynthia and Sister Jane had a special bond, and Cynthia could sense the pride that Sister Jane felt in her. She was aware that she was one of the brightest students in the class. As Cynthia looked at Sister Jane's face, she marveled at how lifelike it appeared. It seemed as if Sister Jane were simply sleeping, ready to wake up at any moment, raise her voice, and instruct the children to open their books. Cynthia scrutinized every detail of Sister Jane's face. Her lips, brows, eyelids, just as she had done from her usual spot in the first row. What color were her eyes? Cynthia wondered. Weren't they a soft shade of blue? In that fleeting moment, Cynthia imagined Sister Jane's eyes opening, turning toward her, and gracing her with a warm smile. A profound and deafening silence enveloped Cynthia, and it felt as if the entire world had suddenly frozen. Move! Someone called from behind, jolting her from her reverie. She turned to see Percy waiting for his turn and then looked back at Sister Jane, who lay there, motionless and as lifeless as could be. Afternoon? During recess, as the other girls played handball on the field, Cynthia sat alone, watching them. Their joyful faces contrasted starkly with the somber experience she had just witnessed. She couldn't help but wonder how easily people could move on, as if nothing had happened. What did death mean to them? Just a brief gathering of an hour or so? Was that all the time they could spare for the departed? Or perhaps they found solace in celebrating the living, reminded by death's presence. Cynthia pondered the mundane activities that often consumed people's lives, the never-ending cycle of their seemingly purposeless actions, and their deliberate efforts to avoid thinking about death. A life, with all its emotions and experiences, had been extinguished, just like that, and it seemed like the world didn't care. Suddenly, Emily pounced on her, breathless and concerned. "What's wrong, Cynthia? You look lost." Cynthia replied, "Nothing. I'm okay." "Come join us," Emily urged. Cynthia hesitated, then said, "I don't feel like it. You guys go ahead. I'm going to the study hall." She gathered her books and made her way toward the quiet corridors. Rose couldn't help but mutter, "What a buzzkill," as soon as Cynthia left. Emily reminded her, "Rose, she's our friend." Yeah, I know," Rose conceded. "Come on, let's go," she said, pulling a worried Emily back into the game. In the study hall. When Cynthia entered the study hall, she found only 3 other girls inside, and they seemed startled by her arrival. After realizing she was just another student, they returned to a magazine they had managed to sneak in from somewhere. Life moves on, Cynthia thought as she settled into a front-row seat, but she struggled to focus on her reading amidst their giggles. Frustrated, She turned around and gave them a stern look. The girls fell silent, and one of them gestured to the others to leave, taking their little gathering elsewhere. As they left, the last girl pulled the door shut with a force that caused it to slam, the echo resonating through the empty hall. An unsettling silence followed. For a moment, Cynthia failed to grasp that she was now alone in the study hall. As she tried to refocus on her book, she suddenly felt accompanied by a peculiar notion. It was as if Sister Jane were still alive. Memories of Sister Jane teaching in the very same study hall flooded Cynthia's mind, and she envisioned the room filled with students. They echoed Sister Jane's teachings, repeating after her as she enunciated challenging words and nodding in understanding. Sister Jane's gaze locked with Cynthia's, and the class fell into an eerie silence. The lighting dimmed, and Cynthia struggled to utter a response, wondering if it was all too late. Just then, a whisper came from behind her. "Cynthia?" Startled, Cynthia turned around quickly, scanning the dimly lit corners of the vast room. She searched from one corner to another, but the voice seemed to have come from a distant past. Cynthia dismissed it as a trick of her imagination and returned her attention to her book. But the notion that Sister Jane's spirit might still linger in the convent crept into her mind like a slow-moving serpent. It coiled from the nape of her neck to her face, drawing her attention to the closed door. The colors, the single bulb in the room flickered. Then, the same whisper that she had heard moments ago emanated from directly behind her desk. It was enough to send shivers down her spine. Cynthia sprang for the door as if she had encountered a ghost, but when she tried to open it, it wouldn't budge. She rapped on the door frantically. "Open the door. Someone, please," Cynthia pleaded. Her heart raced as the door remained stubbornly shut. "Is anybody there?" She glanced back into the empty space of the study hall, her eyes scanning the room anxiously. The benches were the only tangible elements, reminders of reality. Then in an instant, the bulb went out, leaving her in total darkness. A piercing scream echoed through the convent's corridors, sending girls rushing toward the source. They heard Cynthia's frantic pleas from behind the jammed door. "Open the door. Please open the door." Aye, were her terrified cries. The girls and staff members tried to push the door with all their might, but it wouldn't budge. "It won't open. Try from your end," one of the helpers shouted in desperation. "Are you all right? What happened?" asked another, concern etched on their faces. Two sisters also rushed to the scene, alarmed by the shriek. Recognizing the door was stuck, they quickly sent for the maintenance worker. However, before the peon could arrive, Emily appeared on the scene. She instructed everyone to step aside, then applied all her strength, pressing her shoulder against the door and pushing with determination. With a loud, springing sound, the door finally swung open. Inside, they found Cynthia sitting on the floor, sobbing and trembling. She appeared utterly powerless and frightened. As the light in the room returned, dispelling the darkness, Emily stepped forward and gently touched Cynthia. The distressed girl clung to Emily, and her tears flowed uncontrollably. Emily comforted her, saying, "Everything is going to be all right, Cynthia. I'm here." She held Cynthia close and guided her to their dormitory, providing solace and reassurance in the face of fear. The same night at the dorm, the convent night seldom came with promises, as the girls often delighted in discussing ghost stories in hushed voices, finding entertainment in the thrill of the unknown. However, this night was unlike any other. The incident involving Cynthia had left an indelible mark on their minds and lips. The girls couldn't help but imagine the terror she must have endured all alone inside that study hall. Theories and tales were already beginning to circulate. Sister Jane's ghost had swiftly transformed into a legend that would echo in the minds of the girls for generations to come. Only a generation of skeptics or the passage of time could potentially dispel the haunting story. After all, they say time has the power to heal all wounds. Late into the night, Emily and Rose remained by Cynthia's side, offering her their unwavering support and friendship. Cynthia's tears gradually gave way to laughter as they reminisced about their classroom mishaps and playful pranks on one another. As the laughter subsided and it was time to bid goodnight, Emily assured Cynthia, "I'll be right over there if you need anything." Cynthia smiled and began preparing her bed. Soon everyone was fast asleep, peacefully unaware of the events to come. In the middle of the night, Cynthia stirred by the same eerie noise she had heard in the study hall. She cautiously opened her eyes, realizing that she was facing the wall. However, her senses soon heightened as she felt someone's heavy breathing right behind her. A sheer terror gripped her, and she dreaded the thought of it being none other than Sister Jane. She lacked the strength to turn and confront whatever might be lurking there, so she remained frozen in fear, waiting for the moment to pass. Minutes turned into hours, but the heavy breathing persisted, an eerie presence watching over her. Exhausted and no longer willing to be afraid, Cynthia finally managed to whisper, "Please stop." It was right after her plea that she heard the sound of a heavy robe, a slow and despondent walk, moving away. The breathing seemed to linger by the door for a moment before fading down the corridor. Cynthia finally mustered the courage to turn around and search the room. To her relief, there was nothing there but a room filled with deeply slumbering girls. She clutched her blanket tightly and this time chose to sleep facing the door. As she did, a heavy sadness weighed on her heart, and she felt a profound sense of sorrow, although she couldn't quite comprehend why.